Welcome to day 8 of my trip to Japan. The first thing we did is travel to our new hotel. This will be the last hotel we stay at before we leave Japan. It had a pretty nice view, and you could see we were right across the street from a train station, which was convenient, but this room was horribly tiny. The room was pretty much completely filled up by the 2 beds. Anyway, our first destination today was Meiji Shrine, but on the bus, I was doing a bit of stalking, or candids if you want to use the correct term. This is the day where I really use my stalker lens a lot, and you'll see that later in the video. But I do a bit of practice stalking, as you could say, from the moving bus, which was pretty difficult, but I get some alright results. So after a relatively long bus ride, we finally made it to the shrine, and we were greeted by a huge wall of sake barrels, which I said in an earlier video were used for good luck, and as the Japan Times says, to bring people together. And just to clarify, if anyone didn't know, these sake bottles, or barrels, aren't actually filled with sake anymore. I think they were at one point, but it would be pretty dangerous stacking sake barrels 5 barrels high, filled with sake, like if some fell on you or with an earthquake or whatever. Okay, as we walked a bit farther, there was this it was really big wooden torii, which is that gate thing, and it was unpainted, not like the normal red painted ones you see. Actually, like, you could see the grain, and this picture I took made it look really big, and it actually was really big, as you can see with this picture with the tiny little people in front of it. And again, I stopped to take pictures of some birds, but this time it wasn't a pigeon. I think it was a crow. Then we got to the actual grounds of the shrine, which are pretty big. There was a lot of like open area, and it was surrounded by like a wall type thingy. In the grounds there was this huge tree surrounded by ema. Ema are little pieces of wood that you buy from the shrine, and then you write your wish on it, and then you put it on the tree, and hopefully it'll come true. And as you can see, there are ema written in many different languages, like I think this one's in Spanish, and this one might be in Thai, or maybe Hindi. So we did some other things, and then we head out of the shrine. On the way out, we saw this guy raking leaves, this really cool looking rake, and I think was actually just a big stick with some twigs tied up on the end, but it looked like it worked for him. So after we left the shrine, we got onto the we got onto the bus. And on the bus, again, I took more practice stalker pictures, and then we ended up in Harajuku. Harajuku, if you don't know, is a street where all of the hip young kids come to shop for clothes and stuff. And on Sundays, a lot of them come down to show off their cosplay and let people take pictures of them. But sadly, it wasn't a Sunday when we went, so we didn't get to see any of that cosplay stuff. I did see some pretty interesting things in Harajuku, like this freaky looking bunny mask, the J-pop band Arashi showing off some camera phones, and the store Condomania. But while I was in Harajuku, I was mainly focused on shooting people on the street. With a camera, of course. Bad joke. So let's go through some of my candid pictures. At first I saw this woman right at the beginning of the Harajuku street who looked very depressed with life. And then I saw this woman holding up an umbrella, in bright daylight I should add, and talking on a cell phone. Just across the street from the umbrella woman, there was another woman putting on some makeup before crossing the street, and then this woman right here looking very shocked that she found a phone in her hand. Okay, so before I continue with the candids, let me just show you this sign. It was posted in Harajuku, and it warns you not to do a few things. It says, no smoking, no littering, no tout, and no shoplifting. Okay, first thing, what's tout? According to the sign, it's pointing at someone in anger. So, if you go to Harajuku, don't do that. Don't point at anyone in anger. And then there's no smoking. Did they not do any spell check on this sign? Like, even if you use Google Translate, it would have said no smoking. That random R wouldn't have been put in. Whatever. So back to the candids. So then I left Harajuku, walked up to this pedestrian bridge, which is pretty nearby, and I got this really cool view of the surrounding area of Harajuku and nearby buildings and such. And then I got off the pedestrian bridge, just sit down on the street corner, waiting for some friends to come so we could continue off. While sitting there though, I decided to take more candid pictures of people walking down this pedestrian bridge. I first caught this picture of this woman that looked like she was deeply engrossed in something, and then there was this girl in the black hat. I thought this girl was going to do something interesting, but she just decided to sit down and play with her phone. There was also this guy with an arrow on his head, defusing a bomb while smoking a cigarette, and this other guy looking over his shoulder in suspicion with a cigarette in his fingers. And then there was this guy who, he had a phone, I don't really know how to describe this guy. He had a cell phone and looked kind of stupid. Okay, so then my friends came and then we left Harajuku. We went on the bus, and on the bus ride we drove by Tokyo Tower. And it was a lot taller than I expected, actually. But when I got back to the hotel, I read that Tokyo Tower is actually taller than the Eiffel Tower. And I expected the Eiffel Tower to be much taller than that. So, just some information for you. So then we got onto a dock, which is going to put us on a boat so we can cruise on Sumidagawa, which is Sumida River. And then we're going to end up at Asakusa to do some shopping and check out a temple. The dock had this really nice view of Sumida, the city, or town or whatever, and the clouds on that day gave this a really nice atmosphere, or whatever you call that word, mood, I think it is. It gave the area really nice, I don't know the word to use for this. It just looked really cool. And right next to the city, there was this really, really cool looking boat. And I got really excited because I thought we were going to use that boat. But we didn't end up using that boat, and it made me really sad. We ended up using this boat, which was by far less sexy. So we got into the boat. I found a good window to take some video from, and I turned around to look at something, and I saw this sign. May peace prevail on earth. Yeah. So we left the dock. I looked back at that super sexy boat that I thought we were going to use, and then I got sad again. But then the boat started to speed up, and it actually started to get pretty rough, and I had to actually hold on. It was kind of scary. I thought we were going to sink, but then it smoothed out, and it was all good. So I got to looking at some buildings, and I saw a Pentel building, and I also saw a 3M building. And if you don't know, these are two relatively big stationery companies. They make like pencils and pens and papers and stuff, and I really like Pentel pencils. I know it's kind of weird, but I really was excited to see the Pentel building. I think it's their headquarters, but I'm not actually sure. And we also saw a whole bunch of bridges and the construction of the Tokyo Skytree. The Tokyo Skytree is essentially the new Tokyo Tower. It's going to be taking over all of the broadcasting duties that the current Tokyo Tower has, because according to Wikipedia, the current Tokyo Tower is too short to broadcast adequately with all of the very tall skyscrapers around it. The Tokyo Skytree is going to be over 300 meters taller than the current tower, and that is nearly double the height. And once it's done, it's going to be the second tallest structure in the world, just being beat out by the gigantic Burj Khalifa. I think that's a hotel or a business building. It's in Dubai, yeah. So back to the boat ride. We saw this building. It was called @Brain, and apparently it's using Twitter. And we also saw this black building that had a flying nimbus cloud on top, and then right next to it we saw this gold building that's apparently supposed to be a beer mug. The gold building is actually a Tokyo headquarters for Asahi Beer, and the gold is supposed to be beer, while the white glass on top is supposed to be like the foam in a mug. So we got off the boat and walked over to an intersection and saw a huge KFC. And then we walked over a bit more and got into the shopping area of Asakusa. The entrance had a very big paper lantern in this sort of gate type thing, and right behind it was the really long market with tons of stalls where people were selling stuff. At the end of the market, there was this huge temple, which looked like it was undergoing construction or renovation or something, but it had this cool wrapping around it to cover the scaffolding, and it had this really awesome looking dragon on it. And in front of the temple, there was this big pot or cauldron thing burning a whole bunch of incense sticks. And that symbol on it is not a Nazi swastika, it is actually a manji, which is a Buddhist symbol for something. I'm not actually sure what it is, but yeah, it's not Nazi related. After we finished looking at the temple and shopping and stuff, we gathered around the entrance, and I started to take pictures of everyone just because I had a camera and I could. And then we went off to go to a restaurant to eat some tempura, and then we got back onto the bus to go back to our hotel. And before I actually went into the hotel, I asked the bus driver, Iwamoto-san, if I could take a picture of him, because this is the last time he was going to be driving us around, and he was a really nice guy. So I took a picture of him, he let me. Awesome guy. So I went up to my hotel, and there was nothing on TV. My computer didn't have any internet. I was really bored, so I decided to go with a few friends out walking to find a 100-yen shop to find a portable Ethernet cable. So we went around, and I saw this guy feeding a stray cat, and I didn't get a picture of him, but here is the cat, and right behind him you can see the food that the man gave him, and his eyes are really glowy because of the flash that I used, and yeah, that it was getting dark. And after this, I couldn't really take any more pictures, usable pictures. Yeah, I couldn't take any more usable pictures because of how dark it was. So that is essentially the end of day 8. So I just went to the 100-yen store, got my Ethernet cable, went back home, or not home, went back to the hotel, and played around with the computer. And that's it. Hope you like day 8. Day 9 coming soon. Bye.